I just found out that yesterday is called Super Saturday. I was watching the news last night, and that's what the newscaster called it, Super Saturday. I guess it's one of the biggest shopping days before Christmas. Blissfully, or maybe naively, unaware of this Super Saturday, I ran a few errands yesterday. I was at the container store in Mission Valley, and I was so annoyed by the traffic and the parking, or lack of parking. And when I finally found a spot and went in and bought the boxes I needed, and I left. And then I headed over to Kohl's to return a couple of things, saw the towels were on sale, so I decided to buy a couple of hand towels. But then I saw the line at checkout. I put them back, and I thought, I'm going to do this online. And it wasn't until I was watching the 6:30 news yesterday did I realize that yesterday was the Saturday before Christmas. Super Saturday. That most of these folks were probably doing last-minute shopping or bargain hunting. And only then, only yesterday at 6:30, did it occur to me that Christmas is on Wednesday. I guess I've really enjoyed that we've had hardly any decorations in the church this year. This allowed me more than any other time this year to focus on Advent, really on what is to come. Of this promise of God that gets fulfilled in a way that we could never have expected. Of a child born homeless and helpless, who becomes a refugee and then has no place to lay his head. Of the God who surprises us with love and hope and peace. Because if you take your eyes off all the peripheral stuff, you suddenly notice what is actually staring you in the face. The God who wants to be in relationship with us. The God who wants to be very active in our lives. The God who wants to be with us in the joys and sorrows of our lives. And don't get me wrong, I'm not claiming any special treatment or revelations from God. That's not what I'm saying. Because I'm usually paying very close attention to the peripheral stuff. The sales and the lights and the glitter and the Christmas parties and the rich food and the ugly sweaters and the smells of the forest that come into our homes. I love all of that stuff. But for some reason, probably because of how busy the last couple months have been, I haven't been really paying attention to any of it lately. And that's probably why reality smacked me in the face yesterday. To all of a sudden notice the sights and sounds and prepare. Yes, for the celebration, but for more than that. To notice that God has been knocking on my door. On the door of my heart, if you will. Hey, I'm coming. What are you going to do about it? So yesterday afternoon was certainly an experience of the unexpected, of being reminded of how insistent God is, who keeps pushing his way into our hearts and into our lives. And then, even when we turn away or when we don't pay attention, even when we don't prepare, God comes. God comes. In the people that we meet, God comes. In the poor and the tired and the homeless and the migrant and the refugee, God comes. In friends and family, in laughter and tears, God comes. And then God fills us with hope. And I think that's what Joseph experienced, something that he could not explain. We are told an angel appeared to him in a dream. Maybe so, but it had an effect on Joseph, so much so that he turned his whole life into caring for Mary and Jesus. In what I imagine was Joseph's most confused moment, God came and pushed everything aside and allowed Joseph to focus on one thing. Emmanuel, God with us. And I'm sure that as a good Jew, Joseph knew his scriptures. And I'm thinking he knew them well. So he was quite aware of the prophecy of Isaiah that the angel quoted to him. Therefore, the Lord himself will give you this sign. The virgin shall conceive and bear a son and shall name him Emmanuel. But then again, I also imagine Joseph's reaction being, okay, I get it. I know the scripture. I know the prophecy. I'm of the house of David. But why me? How is it that this lot falls to me? What did I do to deserve this? Because even if he knew his scripture, I can't imagine Joseph ever thinking that this was the particular way that it would be fulfilled. That his betrothed Mary was going to be with child, that the Messiah was going to come through them. Because wasn't God supposed to send a champion? Someone who's going to liberate Israel? Wasn't this Messiah supposed to be all-powerful, so much so that he could defeat even the Romans? And wasn't the Messiah supposed to manifest the glory of God, the same God who had taken them out of Egypt and made a nation out of them? So who was he? A carpenter in a tiny hamlet in the north. Nazareth may have had less than 400 people at the time, minding his own business. Who was he to get involved in the whole business of salvation? He just wanted to get married and raise a family. I can imagine this was not what he imagined, because what was happening was unimaginable and unintelligible. Matthew makes it sound like it was so straightforward for Joseph, and for Mary for that matter. If you were listening to the gospel closely, quote, "When Joseph awoke, he did as the angel of the Lord had commanded him and took his wife into his home." End quote. Like there was absolutely no drama, period. But what an incredible act of bravery and heroism, that even if he didn't fully understand, because I'm sure he didn't, that he and Mary continued the way they did. I'm thinking that must have been quite a scandal in its day, with questions of shame and honor in this small town. What about Mary's parents? What did they think? What about Joseph's parents? What did they think? How was this all explained to them? Because none of them got a visit from an angel, at least not that we know of. And yet, in the mess and the uncertainty, God finds a way. God comes. Through Joseph and Mary, God comes. From Nazareth to Bethlehem, God comes. In a little child who holds the fulfillment of the promise of salvation, God comes. Through a child. Through a baby. Emmanuel. God with us.